Espero que todos se encuentren bien. My name is Cindy Benavides, and I serve as the Director of Civic Engagement and Mobilization for the League of United Latin American Citizens. It is my pleasure to be here with you and welcome you. As many of you know, LULAC and our thousands of councils across the country are working hard to pass comprehensive immigration reform. We're living in a critical moment where the opportunity to bring millions out of the shadow is a possibility. Today, we have an incredible panel of experts. I'm sure we're going to have a great conversation and dialogue to pass immigration reform and make sure that we know what we need to do to make it happen. If I could ask you to please turn off your cell phones and or put them on vibrate, that would be a great thing. Also, if you have not signed our petition, I voted for immigration reform. We will have volunteers with clipboards, so we're going to be passing those down. Please note that this is going to be live streamed and it's being taped. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's moderator. We are very excited and grateful that Jose Diaz-Balart accepted our invitation to moderate this important town hall. Jose Diaz-Balart is the news anchor of Noticiero Telemundo and the host of Enfoque con Jose Diaz-Balart, the only Spanish language current affairs program focused on topics of interest to the Hispanic community, produced from Washington, D.C.
When we tackle this issue, which has never been more timely, as we speak here today, the issue of immigration reform is being debated in the Senate of the United States of America, and a bipartisan group of 7 are dealing with it in the House. What is going to happen between the House and the Senate on such an important issue is of key importance, not only to our community, but I think to our country as a whole. And then to add to that, that every single day that there is not immigration reform as the law of the land, 4,000 people on average are deported. 4,000 families destroyed by separation today, 4,000 yesterday, 4,000 tomorrow, and on and on and on and on. And every single one of those is not a number. It's a family with love, with dedication to this country, and with the firm determination to live here, not to take, but rather to give to this country. And so this issue has never maybe been more relevant, and it is a pleasure to be here today. And I want to introduce the panelists, and there are a number of them, and all of them very distinguished. Dr. Matt Barreto, founding principal of Latino Decisions. Gabriela Contreras, staff attorney at the Las Americas Immigrant Advocacy Center. Randi Weingarten, national president of the American Federation of Teachers. Douglas Holtz-Eakin, president of the American Action Forum. Hector Sanchez, Chair, National Hispanic Leadership Agenda and Executive Director, Labor Council for Latin American Advancement. Maria Cardona, Principal, Dewey Square Group, and an extraordinary voice for our community in both English and Spanish. Ben Monterroso, Executive Director, Mi Familia Vota. Raul Pacheco, singer and guitarist of Ozomatli, and a big star that we're very happy is with us today. Lydia Guzman, Chair of Immigration Committee, League of United Latin American Citizens, LULAC. To all of you, thank you.
So, as most of you know, the immigration reform bill was introduced into the Senate back in April, into the Judiciary Committee, and moved out of there in May, and is now currently sitting for debate on the floor of the Senate. Now, you know, the reform bill, what is actually included on there is 4 different components. The first component is the border security issue, which is right now the primary focus of the discussion in the floor of the Senate. Conservatives, as you know, are placing a lot of emphasis on that, on securing the border. Now, the second component includes the immigrant visas. Now, the immigrant visas is really what sets the path to legalization to approximately 11 million undocumented immigrants living in the United States right now. And it does that by creating a program for provisional registered immigrants, and which would ultimately lead to legal permanent residence and citizenship. The third component is the interior enforcement, and the fourth component is the reforms to the non-immigrant visas. And all of these we will touch on one by one. So, like I said before, the border security is really the main focus. It sets goals for to secure the border, or triggers that must be implemented before the full bill can move forward and implemented.
I do get this question a lot, like why is the teachers' union, I'm raising it just to answer it. Why is the teachers' union so involved in immigration reform?
Why are the teachers' unions so involved in immigration?
But if you think about it, we basically, people become teachers because they want to make a difference in the lives of children. And many of us have seen the public education system, and it needs to be changed, and it needs to be better. But the public education system is a promise to universal access and universal attainment, and has always been that promise for immigrants. And whether the access point is California or my home state of New York, where there's the Statue of Liberty, or Florida, that has always been the promise. So, that's a beautiful, wonderful aspiration. But in real life as well, teachers every single day, paraprofessionals every single day, school bus drivers, janitors, we see the impact in very human terms of what happens with this fragmented and currently pretty tough immigration law. And worse than that, and this is where I think Matt was going before, that the kind of swirl in the anti-immigrant swirl that happened right around the recession, Arizona, Alabama, this notion of, all of a sudden it's, labor unions and Latino immigrants who are the cause of all the problems in America. I mean, you saw this, and our members saw this. And so I want to tell one story about that impact, and then also one story about the Dreamers, because I think the Dreamers really changed the frame. And yes, voting was really, really important, but the Dreamers really changed the frame. And so I'll stop with these two stories. So Alabama, we represent some folk in Alabama. Jefferson County, which is Birmingham, right outside Birmingham. And the governor thought that this was going to be a really popular thing for them to pass HB 56. Now remember, Arizona had a different law, but HB 56 actually sought to restrict access to public education and order school employees to serve as de facto immigration officers. And basically, school employees had to then essentially rat on people.
They had to ask the kids.
Yeah, they had to rat on the kids. They had to ask the kids
if their parents
were undocumented.
Right.
Now, forget about the fact that, Plyler versus Doe in 1982 said that there was a universal right and, regardless of status. Forget about that. So what was interesting, and Maria said this intimated this earlier, and she was totally right, because there were a lot of people in Alabama who, there are 4% Hispanics in Alabama, but a lot of people in Alabama who, rah, 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 we're just enforcing law. And my members basically led the way to do civil disobedience, to basically say, we ain't doing this. Excuse my language. We're not doing this. And we, LCCR, and we and others supported them, and the Justice Department came in. And then others came in, and we did a big march. When we did the big Selma March, we made this a big issue too. And you saw how it really shifted, even in Alabama, the debate. Like, how dare you do this to kids, to children? And, I can tell the story. I'll tell the one story about Marco Antonio Kirga. He graduated in his high school class, first in his high school class. He didn't walk the stage in graduation because his parents were undocumented, and he did not want to put anybody in harm's way. But you could see that throughout our union, this rifled through about the basic unfairness to children, and it became a real kind of rallying cry for our union that we had to stand in the stead of parents to actually fight these egregious acts.
Let me say three things about the economics of the immigration reform. And the first is just the potential that it brings to the United States. This is the boring economics part, so sleep if you want. But the blunt reality is that the native-born population in the United States has birth rates so low that in the absence of immigration, we don't grow. The population shrinks. And that means that our choices on immigration are the choices we're making about our future. They're choices we make about the size of the population, the labor force, its skills, and fundamentally how fast we will grow and how we will compete in the 21st century. So it is an economic opportunity of first order that we are faced with right now. And the evidence is overwhelming that this could be enormously beneficial to the United States. Immigrants work more than the native-born. Higher labor force participation, they retire later. They bring tremendous skills. 25% of the small businesses in the United States are started by immigrants. The vast array of innovations can't be listed. Second generation of new immigrants finish high school at higher rates, go to college at higher rates, infuse us with all sorts of talents that we need. And so there's a clear and compelling case about the economic foundation for immigration reform. And it's something that many people, myself being one of them, felt has been underappreciated in the debate in the past, and is especially important at a time when we have such poor economic performance and need to do so much better as a nation. Now, that was all just theory until the CBO put out its analysis of the Senate immigration legislation the other day, where they essentially ratified this vision. And so the second thing is we've moved from, oh, this could happen, to the Senate bill does this.
I want to start by thanking LULAC and by recognizing the critical role that LULAC has been playing in all these conversations, all these negotiations, and all these mobilizations at a national level. Is very, very important, the work that this organization has been doing. Also to say how refreshing it is to come to LULAC and see so many young faces that are so committed to participate, to be involved. Just look at this room, it's so refreshing. It reminds me of a particular issue that Randi just mentioned, the question of dreamers. Dreamers, the biggest inspiration that we have in the nation right now. Group of young people that are so passionate on a particular issue that put their lives on the line. And when I say their lives, I mean their lives. They are demonstrating and they can be deported. They are demonstrating for what is a fair cause. They are demonstrating and raising their voices for something that makes sense for the nation. Let's remember this moment. This is going to be part of history. This is going to be as important as what happened in the 60s when there were big demonstrations on a number of issues. The Dreamers are going to be in the history books and are going to be an example of the beauty of democracy, an example of why this country is great.
We, as an activist community and as a Latino community, have not talked about what the appropriate messaging is to convince those that need to be convinced. And I say that because everything that we've done has been incredibly compelling, and there's no question that all of the marches and the dreamers, they have really moved the ball down the field and have really instilled in this country the moral consciousness of why immigration reform has to happen from the standpoint of the values that we have as a country. But you know what? That doesn't go far enough to convince the opponents of immigration reform in terms of why this needs to get done. So 101 on message is to make it relevant to your opposition. Give them a reason to listen to what you're saying. And the way that you do that is, you know, unfortunately, it hurts me to say this, is not to talk about the deportations, because what they'll say is, look, they're breaking the law. They should be deported, okay? That's not going to convince them. Don't talk about families breaking up. That is heartbreaking to us, but if they don't know any Latino families who are going through this, not relevant.
Or they believe the thing that 55% of them are criminals.
Yeah, exactly. They've bought into that. So what do? We take notes about what this gentleman here talked about, Doug, and we look at what the CBO report put out this week, which was incredibly important, and it takes away the talking points from the opponents of immigration reform and puts it into the context of why every single American should care about it from their standpoint.
All right, so what specifically, what do you say?
So what it is you have to talk about it from a family's bottom line, the family's economic impact, the family's economic outlook in terms of their own community, whether or not there are Latinos there. So what does that mean? That means that you look at these figures and I say you because this needs to be every single person in this room, everyone with a brown face, if they go out and talk about this, it's not going to be expected from you. All of a sudden, you're going to have your opposition taking up, actually listening to you, because why? You're going to be talking about this as to why this is important from an economic standpoint. The fact that if comprehensive immigration reform passes, the deficit will be lowered in the next 20 years by $1 trillion. That's not a talking point. The CBO has actually underscored that. You're also going to talk about the fact that immigrants add $3.7 trillion of housing wealth to our economy. The fact that in the next decade alone, we will see an injection of $1.5 trillion from just the economic activity that will be generated by these new immigrants and these new citizens that will now be out of the shadows and will be able to pay taxes. The national security standpoint also should not be diminished. The fact that all of these immigrants who have been here in the shadows will now come out of the shadows. Talk about the rigorous, and I say rigorous, it's very rigorous, a rigorous path to citizenship that includes a background check. Because we don't want criminals here. None of us want criminals here. So let's put this message into the context of what the opposition has talked about. And you know what? With these numbers that came out, we can actually now go out on TV and on radio and on panels and in town halls, and we can say, our opponents who don't want immigration reform are actually saying to you that they want higher deficits, that they want less economic growth for this country, that they want a less robust GDP, that they don't want this country to move forward economically and continue to be globally competitive. Put it in their words, and they will listen.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity, LULAC, for being here. And we do that, but I also want to talk about the political implications of the Latino community and why we're here. Quite frankly, we owe it to a couple great organizers that have got us here to date, and that is Pete Wilson and 187 that started waking us up in California, and we changed that state, and then Russell Pierce in 2010 that made us to start believing that elections have consequences to our community. I start with that because for some of us, I'm going to go back to what Matt said in the beginning. This is a personal issue, and we needed to figure out how we're going to win. And yes, we do need legislation and a good sound legislation. Yes, we do need a great way to communicate and talking points. But we also need to build political power, or else nobody's going to pay attention to us. So with that, I believe that in 2006, we demonstrated the political power. We demonstrated the possibility of mobilizing the community. And we took that, and I want to give a big shout out to the Latino media, because through your help, we were able to legalize, to help people that are already legalized to become citizens, and from citizens to register, and for them to get out to vote. A lot of people don't realize the astronomical work that you have done to promote the civic engagement. It goes unnoticed because we haven't felt it like we did in 2012.
Thank you.
I also will say that the growing of the Latino community and the growing the political power has what has got us to what we are here today. I believe President Obama was pressured by the dreamers. And I will say this, I've been doing this work since 1994. directly working and trying to change the immigration laws of this country, when it was not something that people want to talk about it. We have never had a victory that was given to us by the young adults who were fighting as dreamers. That was a special moment for me. I actually felt that the third rail of politics has been taken away when Obama said we're going to give these people this, and the community started getting a little bit more energized. I can tell you that it wasn't easy to motivate our community to go out and vote in 2012. It's not that I appreciate the deportations that's been happening under President Obama. What can we talk to our community to get out? So, Dreamers, you created the biggest moment in history to get the political power moving, because that is what it gives President Obama the opportunity to do what he did and to really define what side are you on of our community. Are you for inclusion or are you for exclusion?
Raul, I want to ask you about the role that people that are looked up to, are popular, have, can speak to many times hundreds of thousands or millions of people. The role that you think you and others should have, and maybe have not been playing enough of a role regarding this issue, and using social media.
My name is Raul Pacheco. I'm in a band called Ozomatli. We've been together for almost 20 years.
Everybody knows that, dude.
I'm from, we're playing here tonight, so it's going to be fun. And I think one of the things that we, as artists when we were younger, were thinking was, what could we do that's not in the more formalized world of interaction? That's not a politician, that's not a lawyer. I was very interested in all those things, but I ultimately was interested in playing music and so what we felt was that we found plenty of opportunities where people needed the things that we all need: connection, joy, sometimes a celebration, sometimes affirmation, and in all the many different forms of art that you can have that in. So I think with the way technology now, as we got more popular and we noticed what it meant to be a musician, to be a popular musician, as technology took off, as the internet took off, and all these different kinds of platforms of communicating took off, it was not only important, it fit in with the ideas of what we wanted to do in terms of making our music and being able to do that for other people, but also to create a message of specific things that we wanted to support. And that has been something we've been doing from the get-go. So I think it's very, very important to embrace all of modern technology and what it is and what it can do for you in any way. I mean, many people have Twitter, many people have Facebook. I want you to all hopefully follow me. Maybe send me a message. It's Mr. Raul Pacheco. And make sure you put hashtag 2013. And the reason I ask for you to do that is because it's going to communicate something to other people who are not here today. And specifically, many of our fans who are maybe not non-Latino fans, which we have all over the country, all over the world. We've been lucky enough to be at 49 different countries. We've been lucky enough to be musicians for this long. And I think one of the ways we do that is to continue to invigorate with new ideas with different people. One of the speakers also mentioned the idea of young people here. I was very, very happy to see people who are younger. And what I'm seeing here now is most of you are younger than most of us here, and definitely than me. And I think it's fantastic. It's inspiring, It's like it's something that, as people who do this work, it's extremely important for us. So, one of the ways that we also are inspired by that communication is in terms of songs that we write. I tell you that we are very, very moved by stories we hear from our fans, and that interaction that is in social media, that interaction that is at shows, that interaction is between fans. It's more than just adoration for us. It's not really what is important for us. It's kind of a community that we can rely on, and we can go to different cities and support different causes. We're very, very open about having people ask us for things to do, and I think one of the ways that is effective is through these different platforms that are there.
As I hear all the different speakers talk about the importance of immigration reform, the messaging, the studies that have come out, I think this is all important information that we can certainly utilize. And before I get to that, I just want to say LULAC had an important victory this Monday in the United States Supreme Court, in which the LULAC was a plaintiff in a lawsuit in Arizona in which voter registration had required proof of citizenship to register to vote. And so the justices decided that this went against federal elections, where the Voting Rights Act stating that registering to vote should be made easier and not more difficult. And so they disagreed with Arizona's Prop 200 that was passed by the voters in 2004. And so I just want to say, thanks to a lot of folks in Arizona, including folks, Mi Familia Vota and other folks who helped bring a lot of the cases forward. So, this was one of those major victories, and this is also shows an example of how the debate of immigration reform intertwines with civic participation. Indeed. Felicidades. The LULAC has been definitely working collaboratively with many different organizations, and we've launched several different campaigns. Some of the things that we've done is, we've worked with the different organizations, community organizations, mobilizing at a grassroots level. And what we've done is we've actually used coalitions, and we formed coalitions to do a couple of the following things: visit members of Congress to share the story and this messaging. We've actually formed coalitions that we haven't had an opportunity to form coalitions in the past. In the past we've used to work with, youth, faith-based, labor, but now we're starting to see that in this immigration debate, we have new allies, such as the Chambers of Commerce, where they in the past, didn't work with us on this, and now the chambers see the value, because we all know, especially now with the CBO report, that in order to fix the economy, you have to pass immigration reform. That message is striking loud and clear. The political piece. Let me say that when this Proposition 200, the one that called to prove citizenship and also ID at the polls, we knew what the objective was. The objective on something like this is to keep the Latino vote at bay. There was also a couple of pieces of legislation, not only in Arizona but in other states, that were attempted to be passed, in which they tried to deny citizenship to children that were born of undocumented parents. Okay, why? Because they knew that in 18 years, those kids would be future voters, right? Right. At the same time, for the same reason, now we have, where you have some of the in CIR, the conversation is prolonging the pathway to citizenship. Why? Because they want to keep that Latino vote at bay. But we need to continue to do the following: register to vote, send that message. So we have launched some interactive websites. We are partnering with the Latinos United for Immigration Reform, and I'll tell you what, that website is so awesome. I encourage everybody. Here first of all, congratulations to everyone that is here, because you're all a leader. And this is a situation where what happens in Vegas does not stay in Vegas, not in this situation, because we're going to have to go back, and we're going to have to go back and talk to our coalition members. We're going to have to organize, and we're going to have to make sure that we participate. We have action alerts in which we can not only send a message when a piece of critical information comes out where we need to contact our members of Congress, but at the same time we can send messages. And by registering through websites in which we partner with some of our allies, we can do this very quickly, and we can send messages to the president, we can send messages to members of Congress, and we can actually, also pick up the phone and call them. And that is something really important. That's very grassroots, but it's very effective. And let me tell you something, they take notice. They take notice.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. When we talk to a member of Congress, they will share with you, well, I've received this many calls saying support and this many calls saying not to support. They weigh those.
They have to. Thank you so much, Lydia. Thank you so much. And we have to think forward. And we have to think what happens is if the best case scenario doesn't work. Are we doing enough as individuals, as family members, as communities, and as a country? And I think that all of you being here was very, very helpful to all of us. And I thank you for the opportunity to being here on this day. Gracias.
Con amor, con orgullo y con gusto, porque sé que sí se puede.